In the Mekong Delta of southern Vietnam, on a grim March morning in 1968, a tense silence reigned among the makeshift positions established between muddy water channels. American infantry soldier James Morrison was checking his M16 rifle while listening to sounds coming from the thick forests on the opposite shore. Bird songs, rustling leaves, and sometimes distant human voices. Morrison was 22 years old and far from the wheat fields of Dayton, Ohio, in a country he didn't know, in the middle of a war he didn't understand. He had initially come with feelings of patriotism, but 12 months of Vietnam experience had taught him that no side of the war was completely right. "They're definitely there," said Sergeant Rodriguez quietly beside him, "but we don't know where exactly." Rodriguez was 40 years old, a Korean War veteran and Morrison's mentor. They had met on the first day in Saigon. Back then, Morrison was very young, very eager, and very naive. He thought, this war will last 6 months. Rodriguez had taught him the realities. "Son, it's not that easy." Morrison's conscription had occurred in the summer of 1967. He was studying engineering at Ohio University and had a bright future. But when the draft notice came, he hadn't hesitated. His father had also fought in the Korean War, and patriotism was an important value in the family. "You'll be America's voice, son," his father, Walter Morrison, had said when seeing him off. "You'll fight for freedom." But here, in the mud of the Mekong Delta, Morrison had begun to question what freedom meant. The death he saw every day, the screams he heard every night, the casualties counted every morning. Was this really for freedom? Beside Morrison, along with Sergeant Rodriguez, was a 15-person team. Each had come from different states, and each had a different story. Davis from Texas, young and stubborn. Thompson from New York, urban and practical. Williams from Mississippi, quiet and thoughtful. O'Brien from Boston, educated and analytical. This diversity was actually their strength. Each had different experiences and perspectives. But it was also their weakness, because they all understood differently why they were here. For Morrison, coming to Vietnam was a journey. Initially, he had come by military aircraft from California to Clark Air Base, then to Tan Son Hut. In the first days, everything was very new, very exotic. Tropical climate, different smells, different sounds. But when he first encountered real war, the romanticism had ended. When he lost his first friend, young Peterson, Morrison's world had been shaken. Peterson was only 18 years old and constantly talked about his farm in Minnesota. "It's planting season at home now," he had said the day before he died. "Dad must be planting crops alone." Peterson's death had changed Morrison. He had learned that war wasn't romantic, that death didn't discriminate. Good people died, bad people died. Age, education, family status, nothing mattered. In the forest across from Morrison were Viet Cong forces, but he had never seen them. Only their bullets came. Sometimes sounds were heard at night. Sometimes movements were noticed in the forest. Rodriguez had told him a lot about the Viet Cong. "These aren't traditional soldiers, son. They're farmers, but also warriors. They've taken root in the forest. They know every tree, every path." Morrison was curious. Who was across from him? What age? From where? Why was he fighting? Was he a university student like himself? Or a farmer? Did he have a family? These questions bothered Morrison, because thinking of your enemy as human made it harder to kill him. But to survive in war, you had to kill your enemy. "Don't think too much," Rodriguez would say. "Thinking is a luxury here. Survival is priority." But Morrison couldn't help thinking. This was his nature. He had received engineering education, was accustomed to analytical thinking. He thought every problem had a solution. But was war a solvable problem? American forces had come to the region 3 months ago. Their mission was to protect an important waterway and reduce Viet Cong activity. But very little progress had been made in 3 months. The Viet Cong were still there, still attacking, still in control. The soldiers of Morrison's team were tired and demoralized. Letters from home, didn't bring very good news either. Anti-war protests were increasing in the country. Students, mothers, former soldiers wanted the war to end. "I don't know what the hell will come of this," Davis said one evening. "We're dying, but for what?" Morrison was asking himself this question too. Why was he here? Was it really to stop communism? Or was this just an ego war of old politicians? The daily routine of American forces began at 5 in the morning. Morrison would wake up at the same time every morning, drink the same coffee, check the same equipment. Routine was part of staying alive. After breakfast, patrol duty. Morrison and 4 friends would do recon in the area. They would follow the same routes every day, check the same points. They would search for Viet Cong activity, afternoon training, weapon maintenance, tactical planning, communication. Morrison liked these trainings because they kept his mind busy. Evenings were letter writing time. Morrison would write to his mother Dolores every day. He would tell his mother not to worry, write that everything was fine. But he never wrote the truth. "Dear Mother, today was a beautiful day. The weather was sunny and I played games with friends. This place isn't that bad. I'll be home soon. With love, James." But the reality was very different. That day, they had lost 3 friends. It was rainy and they had been stuck in mud. Morrison had cried at night. Letters from his mother were Morrison's lifeline. Dolores would talk about daily life in Dayton. Neighbor situations, whether garden work. "Dear son, today Mrs. Patterson's daughter got married. It was a very beautiful wedding. Are you also thinking of getting married when you return? That beautiful girl Sarah is still waiting for you. With love, Mother Sarah." Morrison remembered her, his high school sweetheart. Very beautiful, very smart, very good girl. But now she was very far away. Vietnam had caused Morrison to forget her. Morrison's father, Walter, also wrote letters. But his letters were more formal, heavier. "Son, your country is proud of you. Dear duty properly. The Morrison family has always been patriotic. You continue this tradition too. Your father, Walter." These letters bothered Morrison. Did his father understand the difficulties of war? Was the Korean War this complicated? Morrison's first major crisis in Vietnam occurred in the 3rd month. During routine patrol, they had fallen into an ambush. Morrison and 5 friends had been trapped in the forest. Viet Cong forces were firing from all sides. Morrison had come face to face with death for the first time. He could hear bullet sounds. Dirt was hitting beside him. Heads down. Rodriguez had shouted. Morrison had stuck to the ground. His heart was beating so fast he thought it could be heard. He couldn't breathe. "What are we going to do?" he had asked Davis. "We'll wait," Davis had said. "Support will come." But support couldn't come. The radio was broken, and they couldn't report their position. They had stayed there for hours. Morrison had smelled death that day. Towards evening, Viet Cong forces had withdrawn. When Morrison and his friends returned to base, they were traumatized. Morrison couldn't sleep that night. "First time like this?" Rodriguez had asked the next day. "Yes," Morrison had said. "You'll get used to it, but it's never easy." Rodriguez was right. Morrison had gotten used to it, but it was never easy. Every patrol brought the same fear, the same tension. But now he could control it. This incident had changed Morrison. Now he was more careful, more alert, more professional. But at the same time, he had become more pessimistic. Morrison's closest friend in Vietnam was Tommy Williams. Williams came from Mississippi and had a completely opposite character structure to Morrison. He was calm, spoke little, thoughtful young man. Williams came from a farming family. His family was poor but proud. He had come to Vietnam to earn money. "Military pay is good," he would say, "for my family." Morrison and Williams would talk long into the evenings. War, family, future, dreams. They would discuss every topic. "Why did you come here?" Williams had asked one day. Morrison had thought, "I don't know. Patriotism, maybe, or just obligation." Patriotism? Does this have anything to do with patriotism? Morrison couldn't answer this question. Was this really patriotism? Or was it just politicians' ego war? Williams' philosophy was simple. Stay alive, go home. That's all. He didn't take concepts like heroism, honor, homeland very seriously. I didn't come here to die, he would say. I came to continue my life. Morrison sometimes envied Williams. If he could think that simply, life would be much easier. Morrison's other close friend was Patrick O'Brien. O'Brien came from Boston and was studying law at Harvard. Very intelligent, very cultured, very analytical. O'Brien saw war as an intellectual problem. Geopolitics, strategy, diplomacy. He analyzed everything theoretically. This war is America's biggest strategic mistake. O'Brien would say, "We can never win." Why? Morrison would ask, "Because we are invaders. They are defenders. History shows the winner of such wars is always the same." O'Brien's analyses made Morrison think. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was impossible for them to emerge victorious from here. In Morrison's 6th month in Vietnam, there was a major operation. American forces would attack the main Viet Cong base. Morrison was also assigned to the operation. The operation was a complete disaster. Intelligence was wrong. Maps were old. Coordination was broken. American forces fell into an ambush and suffered heavy casualties. Morrison lost a very close friend that day, Bobby Peterson. Peterson was only 19 years old and constantly talked about the farm in Minnesota. Peterson's death deeply shook Morrison because Peterson was young like him, innocent like him, full of dreams like him. "This is my fault," Morrison said to Williams that evening. "Why?" "I couldn't protect him." "You're not God, James. You can't save everyone." But Morrison blamed himself. He had been beside Peterson when he died. His last words had been, "Mom." This incident changed Morrison a lot. Now he saw the meaninglessness of war more clearly. Why were young, innocent people dying in this war? Morrison changed the letters he wrote to his mother after that night. Now, he began to be more honest. "Dear Mother, today was a bad day. I lost a close friend. His name was Bobby Peterson, and he was a very good boy. He was only 19 years old. This war is changing me, Mother. I don't understand why people kill each other. Everyone has family, dreams, future. Pray for me." With love, James, his mother had indicated in her reply that she was worried. "Dear son, your letter worried me very much. You are a strong boy, but war affects everyone. Just do your duty and come home. I miss you very much." Mother, in Morrison's 9th month in Vietnam, he experienced a major question crisis. Why was he here? What was he fighting for? What was the meaning of this war? During that period, anti-war protests had increased in the country. Morrison saw in newspaper reports that students, mothers, former soldiers were opposing the war. "Maybe they're right," he said to O'Brien one day. "Of course they're right," O'Brien said. "This war will have no winner. There will only be losers." After these conversations, Morrison began to withdraw. He wasn't talking to his friends as much as before, wasn't as active as before. Rodriguez noticed this. "What's the problem, son?" "I don't know, Sergeant. I'm questioning everything." "Question, but don't forget your duty. You need to survive here." Rodriguez was right. Morrison should forget his questions and focus on staying alive. But it wasn't easy. During this period, Morrison thought long into the night. What would he do after Vietnam? Would he return to university? What would his career be like? What would his family be like? He hadn't heard any news from Sarah. She might be with someone else now. Morrison had to accept this. One night, Morrison decided he would no longer question the meaning of this war. He would just do his duty and go home. He had no other choice. In March of Morrison's 11th month in Vietnam, the event that would bring major change occurred. That day, during routine patrol, intense fighting broke out between American forces and the Viet Cong. The fighting started at 10 in the morning. Morrison and his friends were patrolling around the water channels in the Mekong Delta when they suddenly came under multi-directional fire. The Viet Cong forces were very well organized this time. They had surrounded the Americans from 3 sides. Morrison and his friends had to seek positions where they could take shelter. "Right," Rodriguez shouted. Morrison, Williams, Davis, and the others took shelter in small hills beside the water channel. But the Viet Cong fire was very intense. The fighting lasted for hours. American forces called for support, but helicopter support couldn't come. The weather was very foggy and flying was dangerous. Around 3 in the afternoon, Morrison saw that one of his friends was wounded. Nguyen, the South Vietnamese liaison officer, was seriously wounded in the leg. Nguyen was 24 years old, married with 1 child. He was born in Saigon and educated in America. He spoke English very well and got along well with American soldiers. Morrison loved Nguyen very much. He was a gentle, intelligent, and brave young man. He had taught Morrison a lot about Vietnamese culture. "Help me," Nguyen groaned. "I can't move." Morrison's heart clenched as he crawled to Nguyen's side. He was losing a lot of blood from his leg and was in shock. "Don't worry," Morrison said. "We'll get you out." But how? There was about 50 meters of open ground between the positions. Crossing this area was impossible. Viet Cong snipers were tracking every movement. Morrison tried to call for a medic, but the radio was broken. Nguyen's condition was getting worse. "My wife," Nguyen murmured. "Tell her I love her." "Don't say that," Morrison said. "You're going to be fine." But Morrison knew the truth. Nguyen would die if he didn't receive urgent medical help. And right now no one could help him. Morrison had been sitting helplessly beside Nguyen for 40 minutes. The Vietnamese soldier's condition was getting worse. He was beginning to lose consciousness. "Someone has to do something," Davis said. "What can we do?" Williams asked. "Going out there is suicide." Morrison looked at Nguyen's pale face. He couldn't let this young man die. But what could he do? At that moment, a crazy idea came to his mind. Maybe he could pretend to surrender with a white flag. Maybe the Viet Cong wouldn't shoot at someone trying to save a wounded person. "Crazy idea," Morrison said to Williams. "What?" "White flag. Surrender signal. Maybe they won't shoot." Williams squinted at him. "You're insane." "Maybe, but I have to try." Morrison pulled out a white T-shirt from his pack. He could turn it into a flag. When Rodriguez heard this plan, he went crazy. "Morrison, are you insane? If you go out there, they'll kill you." "Maybe, but Nguyen will definitely die if we don't do something." "This isn't your duty, son." "What is duty, Rodriguez? Why did we come here? Wasn't it to save people?" Rodriguez wanted to raise his voice, but looked at the situation. Morrison's mind was made up. Morrison tied his T-shirt to the end of a stick. His heart was beating wildly, but he was determined. "If I don't make it," he said to his friends, "tell my mother I tried to do the right thing." Williams held his hand. "Don't do this, James." "I have to." Morrison put his weapon down. He raised the white flag and slowly stood up from his position. When Morrison emerged from his position holding the white flag in the air, it was as if the entire war had stopped. Both American and Viet Cong fire ceased. The silence was terrifying. Morrison expected death with every step, but he continued walking. Nguyen was unconscious, but still breathing. When Morrison reached him, he knelt down and checked his condition. The leg wound was very serious, but not fatal. If immediate intervention was made, Nguyen could be saved. Morrison carefully lifted Nguyen. The young man was almost unconscious, but groaned slightly. "It's okay," Morrison said quietly. "I got you." Morrison put Nguyen on his shoulder and began walking toward the American positions. Every step was hell. A bullet could come at any moment, but it didn't come. Morrison walked 60 meters. Nguyen's weight was increasing, but he didn't stop. His friends could see him and were amazed. Jesus Christ, Davis murmured. Rodriguez was preparing. He had called for a medic and was ready to receive Nguyen. When Morrison approached the positions, his friends helped him. They took Nguyen and immediately began medical intervention. Morrison turned back. He raised the white flag again and walked back to his own position. This time the walk was faster, but still unsafe. Viet Cong forces still weren't firing. When Morrison returned to his position, his legs were shaking and he sat down. "You crazy son of a bitch," William said, his eyes full. "Is he alive?" Morrison asked. "Yeah, medic says he'll make it." Morrison was relieved. The mission was complete. Morrison's action had profound effect on both American and Viet Cong forces. The fighting didn't end completely, but the atmosphere changed. The intensity of fire decreased. Both sides began to be more cautious. It was as if Morrison's humanitarian action had reminded them of humanity in the middle of war. Nguyen's condition became stable. The medic reported that he was in critical condition, but now safe. "You saved his life," the medic said to Morrison. Morrison nodded, but didn't feel much. He had just done what was right. Rodriguez approached Morrison. "Son, you did something very brave today, but don't ever take such risks again." "I had to, Sarge." "I know, but next time, think about your own family, too." Morrison thought about this. His own family. His mother Dolores would worry if she knew he was taking such risks. When evening came, the fighting ended completely. Viet Cong forces withdrew. American forces returned to base. Morrison couldn't sleep that night. He was thinking about what had happened during the day. Why had he done this? Was it really for Nguyen? Or for himself? Maybe for both. Maybe he was looking for meaning in this war, and today he had found it. Morrison's action quickly spread throughout the base. Everyone was talking about his story. Some called it heroism. Some called it madness. "Morrison, you're either the bravest or the stupidest soldier I've ever met," Colonel Henderson said to him. Morrison didn't know what to answer. "I just did what felt right, sir." "Well, it worked. Nguyen is stable. But don't make a habit of this, son." Morrison's friends were talking about him. "He's crazy," Davis said, "but in a good way." "I could never do that," Thompson said. "Takes guts I don't have." Williams thought differently. James was always different. This didn't surprise me. O'Brien analyzed it from an intellectual perspective. Interesting psychological phenomenon. In extreme situations, individual morality can override military doctrine. When Morrison heard these comments, he felt uncomfortable. He didn't want to see himself as a hero. He had just done what he had to do. Nguyen fully regained consciousness the next day. When Morrison visited him, the Vietnamese soldier thanked him with tears in his eyes. "You saved my life," Nguyen said. "Why?" Morrison thought. "Because you're my friend. Because you have a family. Because it was right." Nguyen nodded. "In my culture, we believe life dead is sacred. I owe you my life now." "You don't owe me anything, Nguyen." "Yes, I do. And I will never forget." Nguyen showed Morrison photos of his wife and son. "My son is 2 years old. Because of you, I will see him grow up." This conversation deeply affected Morrison. He hadn't just saved a life. He had also saved a family. A child would have a chance to know his father. When Nguyen's wife came to the hospital, she met Morrison. She didn't speak English, but the gratitude in her eyes said everything. Nguyen translated. She says, "You are her family's guardian angel." Morrison was embarrassed. "I'm not an angel. I'm just a soldier." "Sometimes they're the same thing," Nguyen said. Morrison wrote his longest letter to his mother that evening. "Dear Mother, today I experienced one of the most important days of my life. I did something very risky to save a wounded friend. I walked with a white flag under enemy fire. I know you'll worry a lot, but I had to do it. That man was going to die, and I knew I could help him. This war has changed me a lot. Mother, I no longer think about big words like patriotism, honor, duty. I just think about humanity. I think people need to help each other. The man I saved today has a 2-year-old son. This child will now know his father. This is more valuable to me than anything. Pray for me. I'll be home soon. With love, James. His mother's reply came 2 weeks later. Dear son, your letter both worried me very much and made me very proud. You have always been a good-hearted child. I thought this war had corrupted you, but I was wrong. What you did was very brave. But please be careful. I can't bear to lose you. Everyone in the neighborhood is talking about your heroism. Mr. Peterson, Bobby's father, came and told how you protected Bobby. He was very grateful. Come home soon, son. With endless love, Mother. When Morrison read his mother's letter, he cried. Mr. Peterson's thanks affected him greatly. He couldn't protect Bobby, but maybe it had given his family some comfort. Morrison's act of courage affected not only his own unit, but also other units in the region. The story spread among all American forces. Soldiers from other units came to visit Morrison. They wondered how he could show such courage. What were you thinking? Asked Sergeant Taylor from a different unit. I wasn't thinking, Morrison said. I was feeling. What? That he didn't deserve to die. That someone had to help. Taylor nodded. Most of us wouldn't have that feeling in a firefight. Maybe you would, if it was your friend lying there. These conversations continued to change Morrison's perspective in Vietnam. He no longer saw war in terms of big strategic goals. He saw it as individual humanitarian moments. Every death was a tragedy. Every rescue was a victory. Every humanitarian act was a light against the darkness of war. A week after Morrison's action, a very interesting event occurred. A message came from Viet Cong forces to American forces. The message was written in Vietnamese and Nguyen translated it. To American soldier, we respectfully receive the courage and humanity of the man who walked with the white flag. He is a true warrior because he did not lose his humanity even in war. We are also people of honor. We want such actions to continue. Morrison was amazed when he read this message. Even the enemy had respected his action. What does this mean? He asked Rodriguez. It means you made an impression, son, even on the enemy. This message showed Morrison different dimensions of war. The enemy was also human. They also had concept of honor and feelings of respect. Maybe war wasn't just a political tool. Maybe humanitarian moments would always be important. Morrison's tour of duty ended in April 1969. The day of departure from Vietnam was emotional. Nguyen saw him off. You changed my life, James. I will never forget. You changed mine too, Nguyen. Take care of your family. Rodriguez also came. You're a good soldier, Morrison. More importantly, you're a good man. Williams was also there. Don't lose a humanity when you go back. Morrison's eyes filled as he said goodbye to his friends. The bonds he had formed with these people in the war zone were very strong. On the plane returning to America, Morrison thought about his Vietnam experience. What had he learned? He had learned that war was bad, but sometimes humanity could prevail. He had learned that people were stronger than nationality, ideology, hostility. In 1995, Morrison made a big decision. He wanted to visit Vietnam. Sarah was initially worried. Are you sure you're ready? Morrison wasn't sure, but wanted to try. Morrison and Sarah, along with their children Michael, 21, and Jennifer, 19, went to Vietnam. Saigon, now Ho Chi Minh City, had changed a lot. It had become a modern, vibrant, developed city. Nguyen met them at the airport. The first meeting after 27 years was very emotional. My friend, Nguyen said, hugging Morrison. My brother, Morrison said. Nguyen's family welcomed Morrison's family very warmly. There was a language barrier, but love was universal. Morrison, guided by Nguyen, visited the old battlefield in the Mekong Delta. Now there were rice fields there. Farmers were working. Children were playing. This is where you save me, Gwyn said, pointing to the field. Morrison remembered that moment. The white flag, fear, courage, humanity. It feels like yesterday, Morrison said. For me too. But look now. Life continues. Children play where we once fought. Morrison was moved. War was temporary, but life was permanent. Morrison returned to America with a different perspective. Vietnam was no longer just a traumatic memory. Each act of kindness, each moment of compassion, each choice to see others as human, these are Morrison's true legacy. The white flag still waves, carried forward by anyone who chooses humanity over hatred, peace over war, love over fear. And in that choice, Morrison's walk continues, not just in the Mekong Delta, but in every place where humans choose to help instead of harm. The story ends, but the choice remains eternal. Will you carry the white flag,